Welcome back, I'm Felix, and I am doing some more nostalgia. This time it is 5 most embarrassing 90s TV spinoffs you won't believe happened. And already, I recognize this one as Baywatch Nights. That one, when it gets to it started off as a detective show, and then they kind of went supernatural with it. It was weird. I don't know why they went that route, but they did. All right, let's get into it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's spin off into spin-off nightmares.
Before you scroll past, what if I told you Baywatch tried to become an X-Files knockoff? Or that before she was Storm in X-Men, Halle Berry starred in one of TV's biggest flops. Now, these aren't fever dreams. These are the weirdest 90s spin-offs that networks hoped you'd forget. Now, the 90s weren't just about Friends and Seinfeld. They were about networks trying to squeeze every last drop of success from their hit shows. It was the golden age of spin-offs, where any character who appeared in more than 2 episodes might end up with their own series. Some struck gold.
That's not a joke, actually. It seemed like if a character became popular with the audience, they were like, quick, we got to spin it off to another show. And 80s, especially the early 80s, I would say, that happened a lot.
Like Frasier spinning off from Cheers. But for every Frasier, there were 5 absolute disasters that the networks wish we'd forget. This was an era when networks were desperate to fill their schedules with guaranteed hits. Cable TV was exploding. Fox had just become a major player, and everybody was looking for the next big thing. But instead of creating original shows, executives thought they could just piggyback on their existing successes. Spoiler alert, they were wrong. Very, very wrong. But before we dive into these absolutely wild TV train wrecks, hit that subscribe button, because we're about to explore 5 shows so bizarre, you'll think I'm making them up. And if you think a model-themed spin-off of Who's the Boss sounds weird, just wait until you see what they did to Baywatch. Now, let's kick things off with...
What's funny is a lot of these, or every time I watch one of these spin-off flops, it's a lot of the same ones, like the dolls, was it Living Dolls? I think that's what he's going to call it. And the one with Matt LeBlanc, that one was a double attempt. Because he had a spin-off and then they tried to do something else with him. But they usually don't talk about Baywatch Nights, actually, which is interesting.
Living Dolls, the show that took Who's the Boss, a heartwarming family sitcom about a male housekeeper, and somehow thought, you know what this needs? A spin-off about models. The year was 1989, and ABC was riding high with Who's the Boss, consistently ranking in the top 20 of shows. The network was desperate to capitalize on that success, and they thought they'd found their golden ticket in Charlie's Angels producer Leonard Goldberg. His pitch? Take Samantha's best friend from New York, drop her into the glamorous world of modeling, and watch the ratings soar. But here's where things get interesting. The original pilot aired as a special episode of...
This is one thing I hate, is when they do this. They do what they call the backdoor pilot, where they air the pilot as part of another episode. I hate when they do this, because it's so, especially nowadays, actually even back then, like, I would say late 80s all the way through maybe to 2000, it became so obvious, and they still do it. It's like, stop doing it. It's so obvious, and it's so bad, and it takes away from the show itself. It's like, just stop. It's a horrible idea. Don't do backdoor pilots anymore. Stop doing it altogether. You know, if you want to spin off a character, make sure it's an established character. Have them be on there for at least a season, 2 seasons, and you can filter. You know, if you do it like that, you can filter in the other characters, and then you can take these characters and give them their own show. But because he was talking about Frasier. Frasier was on Cheers for a long time before he got his own show. And in fact, I think Frasier premiered after Cheers went off the air. So yeah, it wasn't like it came on during Cheers. It was after Cheers.
Of Who's the Boss, featuring different actresses than the ones who would eventually star in the series. The test audience response was, let's just say, not great. So what did they do? Well, they recast everything except the basic premise. Enter Leah Remini and Halle Berry, and yes, that Halle Berry, future Oscar winner Storm from X-Men and Bond Girl. But even these future superstars couldn't save what was essentially a collection of every modeling cliche thrown into a blender. The show followed a group of young models living together in a boarding house run by a former model turned agent. Every episode was packed with the most superficial takes on the modeling industry imaginable. Weight issues? Well, that's solved in 22 minutes. Predatory photographers? Wrapped up with a neat bow. Complex industry problems? Reduced to sitcom punchlines. Let me paint you a picture of a typical episode. Our heroes would face some dramatic modeling crisis, like someone using the wrong shade of lipstick at a shoot, while learning valuable lessons about friendship and self-worth, all while delivering lines so wooden they made mannequins look expressive. But here's the real kicker. The show completely missed what made Who's the Boss work in the first place. Instead of the genuine warmth and...
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that show. The only thing I really remember is... I don't even remember the backdoor pilot for it. But I remember it. It's weird. It's one of those... Because now I think I have a foggy memory of it because of all the YouTube videos I've seen about it. But yeah, I don't really remember much about it.
Chemistry that made the original a hit, Living Dolls gave us a surface-level drama and forced conflict. It's like they took a gourmet meal and tried to recreate it with plastic food. The show lasted exactly 12 episodes before ABC pulled the plug, proving that even having
12 episodes? I don't even remember it lasting that long. I think they were going for the teenage boys liking this, to be honest with you.
And film stars in your cast can't save a show that fundamentally doesn't understand its audience. The final episode didn't even get to air. It was that bad. Interestingly enough, both Halle Berry and Leah Remini have talked about how this failure actually helped their careers. Berry said it taught her what not to do in television, while Remini credited the experience with preparing her for the cutthroat world of Hollywood, so I guess even the biggest TV disasters can have a silver lining. Now, if you thought Living Dolls was a stretch, buckle up for Top of the Heap. Imagine you're...
Yeah, this Matt LeBlanc, this was also a backdoor pilot off of Married with Children. But they did this, and then they tried to do something else with him. And it was like the same character, but a different character. It was weird.
A Fox executive in 1991 for a minute. You've got Married with Children, one of the most controversial, boundary-pushing shows on television. It's famous for being crude, rude, and definitely not family-friendly. So naturally, you decide to take two minor characters and make them wholesome? The show centered around Charlie Verducci and his son Vinny, played by Joseph Bologna and Matt LeBlanc. Their whole shtick on Married with Children was being sleazy con men who'd show up occasionally to annoy the Bundys. Someone at Fox looked at these characters and said, yeah, these guys deserve their own show. The premise, well, Charlie and Vinny would try to scheme their way into high society, usually by attempting to marry Vinny off to a rich woman. It's like...
Hey, that was 7 and 9. But yeah, this was not a good show at all. I vaguely remember it again. I know it was a show, but I don't really remember it.
Pretty Woman meets Trading Places, except without the charm, humor, or basic understanding of what makes either of those stories work. Here's where it gets really interesting though. The show actually started with decent ratings, probably because it aired right after Married with Children, but there was just one tiny problem. They'd completely neutered everything that made these characters work in the first place. Gone was the edgy humor that made Married with Children famous. Instead, we got watered-down sitcom plots about social climbing that felt like they were written for a completely different show. It's like they took characters known for being rough around the edges and tried to force them into a Brooks Brothers suit. The show's original concept was actually much closer to Married with Children's tone, but Fox, who were trying to appeal to advertisers who were nervous about the parent show's controversial reputation, kept demanding rewrites to make it more advertiser-friendly.
You know what's weird? If they had probably left the show alone, it could have been a hit. He probably would have never did Friends. He could have went on to do other things possibly. And this show could have been an iconic show, but they were trying to do something with it that didn't need to be done with it.
The time they were done, it was about as edgy as a sphere. The real irony, though, was they spent way more money trying to make Top of the Heap look upscale than they ever did on Married with Children. Every episode was filled with fancy sets, expensive costumes, and attempts to make it look like a quality production. But as the saying goes, you can't polish a Well, you know. So let's talk about poor Matt LeBlanc for a moment. This was his big break, and he actually wasn't terrible in it. You can see glimpses of the charm that would later make him perfect as Joey on Friends. But he was stuck delivering lines that felt like they were written by someone who'd only heard about comedy through secondhand descriptions. The show lasted 7 episodes before Fox pulled the plug. But wait, this story isn't over. Someone at Fox still thought these characters had potential, which leads us to our next disaster. If Top of the Heap was a lesson in how not to do a spinoff, Vinny and Bobby was the network doubling down on their mistakes. Yeah, you heard that right. They took the least successful part of an already failed spinoff and tried to spin it off again. This is like making a copy of a copy and expecting it to look better than the original. Fox executives, in their infinite wisdom, decided that while Top of the Heap didn't work, Matt LeBlanc's character Vinny still had potential.
I think the problem was they saw the potential in Vinny, they saw the potential in Matt LeBlanc, and they just kept dropping the ball. They didn't know how to market him. Where it sounds like if they had just left it alone the first time around, it would have been fine.
So they paired him with his best friend Bobby, dropped the whole social climbing angle, and tried to turn them into a wacky buddy comedy. Because nothing says hit show like taking the sidekick from a failed spinoff and making him the lead. The premise was deceptively simple. 2 guys trying to make it in Chicago, but without the connection to Married with Children or even the social climbing angle from Top of the Heap, what were we left with? Just 2 characters floating in a sea of generic sitcom plots that felt like they were written by an AI programmed with nothing but 90s sitcom tropes. Let me give you a taste of what passed for plot lines in this show. One episode was entirely about Vinny and Bobby trying to get their security deposit back from their landlord. Another focused on them attempting to start a sandwich delivery business. I know, riveting stuff. And it's like they took every rejected sitcom plot from the past decade and said, yeah, these'll do. The show...
You know what's funny? If they had the writers from Seinfeld working on this with those plots, they probably could have gotten them to work. Because that's kind of what Seinfeld did. It was a show about nothing. And they had a show about a sandwich. It was all about a sandwich. They had a show about getting soup. So those plots are not too ridiculous if written correctly. And clearly they weren't written correctly for this show.
Rushed into production that they were literally writing episodes the day before filming. The actors would sometimes get their lines minutes before the camera started rolling. It's like watching a high school improv show, except with worse coordination and less preparation. The really fascinating part, this disaster actually helped Matt LeBlanc in the long run. When he was later cast in Friends, he knew exactly what not to do. He's even said in interviews that the failure of Vinny and Bobby taught him more about television than any success could have. The show managed to produce 6 episodes before Fox finally pulled the plug. Some episodes never even made it to air in the US, though they were shown in other countries, probably as part of some cruel psychological experiment. But here's the kicker, even after 2 failed attempts, Fox wasn't done trying to spin off Married with Children. They made 2 more attempts that never made it past the pilot stage. Sometimes you've got to admire their persistence, even if it's persistence in exactly the wrong direction. Now let's talk about Models Inc., the show that proved even the mighty Beverly Hills 90210 empire could stumble. By 1994, producer Aaron Spelling was basically printing money with 90210 and its spin-off Melrose Place. He had mastered the art.
You know, they always say Melrose Place is a spinoff of 90210, but in my opinion, it's really not. It was one of those backdoor pilot shows, and I hate, like I said, I hate when they do that stuff, because they want to connect it to this other show, and it's in the same universe. You'll like this one too. It's like, nah, these are 2 separate shows, and the truth is, Melrose Place and 90210 were 100% 2 separate shows, and they should have just been pitched that way. And the truth is, Melrose Place didn't need to be a spinoff of 90210. It stood on its own. I really didn't watch either one, but Melrose Place was popular and didn't need to be part of 90210.
Of young adult drama, so naturally he thought, let's do it again, but with models! The show was actually born from a backdoor pilot on Melrose Place, introducing us to Hillary Michaels, played by Linda Gray of Dallas fame. She was Amanda Woodward's mother and ran the most prestigious modeling agency in Los Angeles. On paper, it looked perfect. Take the drama of Melrose Place, add the glamour.
I do have one question. What is with people trying to make modeling shows? This isn't the first or the second time that, like the Who's the Boss in this one. There have been other attempts to make a modeling show based on models, primarily female models. Every now and then you get the ones that do a mix of both, but it's like they're obsessed with trying to make that happen. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't happen. I think because it's not shown, I don't know. I think it just comes across as too fake is really what it is. Because it's like, if that's really going on, then, and they're still doing it, it's like, you can walk away. But some people just don't want to walk away. But yeah, it's like they are desperate to make a show about models. But it just doesn't work.
Of the fashion world and watch the money roll in. But Models Inc. was like watching someone try to recreate a gourmet meal using only ingredients from a gas station. They had all the right elements, beautiful people, scandalous plot lines, dramatic confrontations, but something was just off. Let me give you a taste of what the show considered normal storylines. In just one season, we had 3 attempted murders, 2 actual murders, 1 fake death, 1 case of amnesia, 2 evil twins, a fashion show shooting, a stalker subplot, and a character who came back with a completely different face after plastic surgery. It's like they took every soap opera cliche, threw them in a blender, and set it to completely insane. The really wild part about all this was the show actually started relatively grounded. It was focused on the actual modeling industry. But as ratings dropped, they kept adding more outrageous...
See, that's what I was talking about. It just doesn't work. And so they tried to be more outlandish, and it just didn't work.
plots.
Ooh, if anybody catches this video, models in outer space. The idea came to me from just Futurama, because Futurama has an episode about Miss Universe, and it's aliens from all over the universe. There you go, a modeling show about aliens trying to be models on Earth. All right.
By the end, they had a character return from the dead only to be killed again in the same episode. Even Days of Our Lives writers would have said, maybe that's a bit too much. The show did give us some memorable moments though, mostly for the wrong reasons. Like when they had a runway show in the middle of a murder investigation, or when a character solved her stalker problem by becoming a soap opera star. You know, totally normal model stuff. Models Inc. lasted one season before getting canceled, but not before giving us one of the most bizarre season finales ever, involving a wedding, 2 shootings, a kidnapping, and an explosion. Because apparently that's how you end a show about the modeling industry. And now we've reached it, okay? This is the crown jewel of bizarre 90s spin-offs. Imagine you're a TV exec. You have Baywatch, a show about attractive lifeguards running in slow motion on a beach. It's a global hit. What's your next move? Well, if you said turn it into a supernatural detective show, congratulations! You're just as unhinged as the people who actually made it.
I don't remember it starting off as a supernatural show, but yeah, when they were doing that supernatural stuff, it was just weird. I actually did try to watch it, but I don't know what they were trying to do with it. It was just weird.
Let me take you back to 1995. Baywatch is the most watched show in the world. David Hasselhoff is at the height of his power. The producers are sitting around thinking, you know what people really want to see? The Hoff fighting crime at night, because apparently being a lifeguard during the day wasn't keeping him busy enough. Season 1 was actually pretty straightforward. Mitch Buchanan moonlighting as a private investigator, solving normal crimes like theft and murder. But then it got weird. The ratings weren't great, and the X-Files was huge at the time. So someone, and I would love to have been in this meeting, said, what if we made it supernatural?
Now, real quick, what's funny is Baywatch started off on NBC. NBC canceled it. They went syndicated with it, and it blew up. And it's, to me, that's weird. That's not the first time. I can't think of the other shows, but I know there's been others that started off. Viper. Viper started off, I think, on NBC as well. And then went syndicated, and it blew up. Sometimes it has to do with the networks getting in the way. As soon as you ditch the network, sometimes the show can take off. And excuse me. And I don't know if syndication is really still a thing, but they need to get back to it. I think if they went syndicated with a lot of shows now, they probably would instead of trying to get them on a streaming service. Now, Baywatch Night is not a good example of that, of course. But yeah, this started off on NBC, got canceled, and then blew up. And I think NBC has a news show about lifeguards, and it's already been canceled. I think the problem is NBC. They don't know how to do those kind of shows. Like, you just need to get out the way and let it do its thing.
Suddenly, Mitch wasn't just solving beach crimes anymore. He was fighting vampires, battling sea monsters, investigating alien abductions. They turned Baywatch into a paranormal investigation show. It's like they were playing TV Mad Libs and just went with whatever came out of their mouths. Let me share some actual plots from season 2. There was an episode about a mermaid serial killer. Yeah, you heard that right, a mermaid serial killer. They had one about a woman who could control men with her pheromones. There was a literal episode where the Hoff fought a sea monster that was basically Cthulhu in board shorts. This show even tried to explain why a lifeguard would constantly encounter supernatural phenomenon. Their explanation, well, the full moon's gravitational pull on the ocean caused paranormal disturbances. Yeah, they tried to use tide science to justify why Hasselhoff was fighting vampires. But here's the best part. They were actually planning a 3rd season where Mitch would travel through time. Imagine Hasselhoff running in...
I feel like this was David Hasselhoff. I feel like this was him. He was behind all this. Like, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And he's the executive producer, not much they could do.
Slow motion through different historical periods. Sadly, or thankfully, the show was canceled before this could actually happen. After 2 seasons of increasingly bizarre episodes, Baywatch Nights finally ended, proving that sometimes a lifeguard should just stick to saving lives on the beach. And there you have it, 5 of the most...
What's interesting, I did recognize pretty much every single one. I'm trying to think, was there one I didn't recognize? Living Dolls, Top of the Heap. And I called the 2 spinoffs there, Vinny and Bobby there. So, oh wait, they count as 2 separate ones. That's what was throwing me off. And Models Inc. So, yeah, I recognized all of them. Doesn't mean that's good. Out of all of them, none of them I remember being good, which is why they got canceled. But yeah, this was fun. I mean, this might be my niche. I was trying to find a niche. Maybe if I can find more nostalgia stuff. But I also mentioned that after a while, they start repeating the same shows in these videos. So maybe I'll do this for a little bit, but eventually we have to move on. But otherwise, don't forget to like and subscribe, and everyone take care. Later.